Hello there, welcome to Some Sweet Sundays. I'm Sweets, and I am with my girl
Nicole.
So she is my coworker. I really do have a job, you guys. Some people probably think I don't work, but I do actually have a job. And we are talking today about church hurt. Some of us have all been through church hurt, experienced it on different levels, have overcome it, or some people have even left the church and never come back because of church hurt. So, what would you say about church hurt? Like, what was your experience in church hurt?
I would say so. I was raised in church, pretty much on the pulpit, and it was so much like a magnifying glass on all the ministers' kids because you had to be this like perfect kid, perfect child. There was no such thing as being a real human being, and like literally any little thing that we would do, whether it was wanting to go to parties as teenagers. Myself and my sister, we were both teen parents. We were literally kicked out of the church. And so my mom was a minister. We went to church. I would say the only day we didn't go to church was Monday. Like right. Tuesday was Bible study. Wednesday we had like home group. Thursday was prayer. Friday was like SWAT. Saturday we would go and prepare for Sunday, and then on Sunday we would have church and then turn around and have minister meetings afterwards. So as the kids, we're just sitting around, kind of like growing up with it, but also too like they just expected us to be like holy right when we were like born. And I've always followed Christ. I love Christ. But once I started getting the church hurt, for example, when I did have my son at a young age as a teen, I tried to bring my son back to get dedicated, and they told me they wouldn't dedicate my son because they assumed that I wasn't serving God. And as a young parent, imagine being raised in church, and this is supposed to be the place where you can go and be vulnerable, and like it's just supposed to be an open door, but then you go in and you're judged.
Yeah.
And then also too, what am I supposed to tell my child? You know, like this is how mommy was raised. This is what my mom has always pushed to us. But then they don't even want to accept my child. Like he's an innocent bystander. Why not give him the opportunity? And so as the pastor is telling me this as a 19-year-old, saying that, he wouldn't dedicate my baby because, one, I did it out of wedlock, but also, two, because he assumed I wasn't serving God. And my thing as a pastor, you're supposed to pray for me. You're supposed to pray for my child, and, maybe I can get delivered or just anything, but to turn your back on me, it just kind of like turned me away from church. Same thing with my sister. She had her baby when she was 16. They literally kicked her out of all the youth groups. We couldn't sing on the choir anymore. We couldn't go to any of the youth events. And it just kind of like leaves a nasty taste in your mouth because the one place you're supposed to go to seek help, you can't get any help. Or you're constantly being judged based off who you are. And even as the pastor would come up and he would share his story about how he did everything under the sun, it's kind of like, well, we're not at the same Christian walk at the moment, but that's why God appointed you to kind of bring us all with you, and to be constantly judged, it kind of turned me off about church, because any church you go to, especially like the Baptist churches, that's the first thing you're judged off what you have on, you're judged off how you speak, you're like just so many things, but they don't realize everybody's not raised in church. Everybody doesn't have the proper etiquette for a church. So as you pray for me, God will work on me. It's not for you to judge me,
So did that like really make you stay away from God? Did you get mad at God, or you got mad at the church? What did you do?
I would say it was a mixture of everything, because also too with my mom, so I was kind of raised in like an abusive home, so we kind of looked to my mom as our like safe, our safekeeping, and like for her not to save us, because church was my mom's like, I wouldn't say club, but that's just where she always
Her
wanted
outlet.
to be. Like Monday was the only day we didn't go to church, but even within that, like, we would pray at home. And then when I did have a baby out of wedlock, my mom made me go to Prayer Mountain. I don't know if a lot of people know what Prayer Mountain is, but literally it can really be a healing place for people, but it was like a punishment for us. So as children, you don't really understand, but we had to go for 3 days. There's no food up there. All you can have is water. It's a Bible. There's no reception. There's no TVs. And literally, like, we were being condemned for everything that we have done. And it was just like, as a child, you're like, what is this, And then it kind of does turn you off about church, you know, because it's just like, now I feel like I'm this demon that needs all this stuff, you know, prayed out of me, but really I'm just a human being. That's like, you know, I need help just the same way that they got helped. And, you know, sometimes like my mom, she didn't get saved until she was 35. You know, I'm born into a church, but also too, I go to these worldly schools. So I want to see what everybody else is doing. Like even with Halloween, we didn't celebrate Halloween. There was so many things we didn't celebrate because it wasn't Christian like. And even now my mom still condemns us because like for Halloween my kids want to dress up. They don't understand it being a devil holiday. They understand like the other kids have costumes on, the other kids are getting candy, and like for me I felt like I missed out as a child. And not because I wanted to be a lot like the world, but also just like as a child you want to wear a costume. I'm not going to praise no devils. I don't want to go do like no voodoo or anything, but I want to dress up. I want to go get candy just like all the other kids. And everybody used to always like kind of pick on us like, oh, you know, your mom a Christian, you know, your mom not gonna let you do this, you know, your mom not gonna let you do that. And they were right. We didn't get to go to parties like everyone else. So a lot of the things that me and my siblings experienced, we had to sneak and experience them. And so I feel like that also, that's why I got pregnant at a young age. That's why my sister got pregnant at a young age, because there was no conversations being had about sex, you know, like it was just, you're not supposed to do it until you get married. But okay, how are you supposed to get married if you can't date? How are you supposed to get married if you don't even know like what that entails? So you're just sneaking doing it, and then you're learning from your friends that don't go to church, you know? And so as a child, you're just kind of lost and you need the guidance. And I understand guidance from like the Bible and everything, but we also need to understand it realistically, like what's going on in the world today. So.
But do you think that sometimes, and I've never met your mom, but I know, you know, she's a God-fearing woman, and that sometimes possibly that, you know, speaking just openly, that sometimes as parents, just because we're a parent, we don't necessarily have the training or maybe the understanding or the know-how, or we have never been taught that ourselves. So then how do you then in return give that to your child when it's not in you? If you don't know, you don't know. And then sometimes people kind of giving counsel to other members or people in the church, and they don't know either. So then it's like you're misguided, and then you try to come and lay the law down with what you think is best, because for sure as a parent you don't want your kids going to no party.
That's true.
But then sometimes it may be a discussion. But also, you ain't putting no food in this house. So when I said no, I said no. You know, but I do understand as being a kid that was, and I still ask a gazillion questions because, you know, we talk all the time, every day. I'm probably going to be not employed because people always be at my desk. I'm always counseling and pouring, am I not? You know, I'm always giving the scripture, always giving it a word, and, you know, sometimes people be looking side-eye. I'm like, I'm doing my father's business. So I might have to come and stay with you and the hubby. I'm joking. I kid. But, you know, sometimes people don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And so I don't know how to have this discussion with my teenager child because nobody had it with me. If you never knew what love is, how do I know how to love you? I know what I've been shown. So in some aspects, especially in the Black culture, it's not that you have been taught or told, it's what you observe. Or I'm doing this because I love you, and I don't explain it to you, and maybe you've not been hugged or told you've been loved or sit down with a conversation. But as a parent, I'm taking care of you and I'm handling my responsibilities because that was done for me. All of the other feelings and all of that wasn't talked about. So I don't know how to process my own stuff. So how do I know how to process yours? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes now when you look back retrospectively, is there some things that you could say, haha, I got it now, because I didn't understand why she did that or why she said that or why it was hard for her until now that you're an adult and maybe possibly you can talk to her about things that you were off the table when you were 16, off the table when you were 15, off the table when you were 14. And now sometimes it's just keep living, young gal.
Right.
That's what I would get from my grandmother. Just keep living, young gal. You know what I'm saying? And but I was also able to ask questions. I was able to come and have a sit down. I was taught at an early age. Struggle with love because my mom wasn't really loved because my grandmother knew to do what she needed to do for her kids, but not with her kids.
Right.
And so she knew to provide. And so my mom didn't really know how to love. So then she didn't really know how to love me.
Right.
You know? And so, and it's not that, you know, oh, you're trying to cause these problems, but I didn't know. You know? And I know with, you know, one of my sons, you know, he talks about, oh, being forced to go to church and forced to do this. And we were always at church and da-da-da-da. But a closed door saved your life. Could you agree with that?
I agree. I agree with that.
Why would you say that now? In sitting in this seat, in this age, and this understanding, and this knowledge, this wisdom.
Well, one, now that I have kids, I kind of understand like where my parents were coming from.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that you touched on was you were able to ask questions.
Yeah.
When you come, like me personally, coming from a military background, everything was disrespectful.
Right.
It's kind of like, what did I say? End of story. There's no, well, why can I not? It's everything is disrespectful. If you have
Right.
anything to say after a parent said something, you're being disrespectful.
Right.
And sometimes it would be just to be like, well, why can't I go? You know? But then sometimes it was really for understanding, like
Right.
for clarification, and that you didn't have an opportunity to do that. With my kids, though, because of the way I was raised, I do like to share with them. So if I tell you you can't go to a party, these are the reasons why. Like, you don't understand what's really going on out there today. Like, mommy watches the news and all these things are going on. I would hate for something to happen to you. You know,
Right.
I don't want it to be like, well, you know, that's the devil's music. Or it's like, Mom, I know, you know, like we're not, at the time, we don't have the same Christian walk. So like the way you're looking at it is not the same way I'm looking at it as a teenager. You know what I mean? And so I would say that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, So, Mom, we appreciate your teaching. We love you. We thank you. Because I just heard you learned something. So, from her telling you being in a military background and dealing with some things that she did as a child, and it's not because you told me anything, but because of the way the Lord allows me to feel and understand and process some things because of the call on my life, that she dealt with some things that was unresolved, that she didn't know how to handle it, but because of her telling you, no, it ain't happening. Go on, sit down. Now, Nikki, you know, that's what you was going to get, you know, and give you that stink eye.
Right.
But it taught you, okay, I didn't like the way that was handled. So now I'm able to say in maturity with my kids that, you know, oh, this is why and this is not. But you're going to get to that stage when they're going to challenge you because you ain't seen that yet. You got small babies. You know what I'm saying? So they have not got that teenage stage where sometimes they feeling and smelling themselves and they don't feel too good and they don't smell too good, you know. And so I would say you learned, though. Because everything is about an experience and a learning process, you know. And so the fact that she was done like that or you were done like that, now you know, okay, let me try it this way. And that's not going to always work because then it's going to be, well, why?
Right.
But why? Because I said so and you trying to keep your teeth.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a good thing to understand because the Bible says when I was a child, I understood as a child. But now that I'm older, I put away my foolish, you know, my childish ways.
Right.
You know, and so now that you're in this seat and you can say, okay, that has some, you know, because you pull from the way we learn.
Right.
You pull from the way you learn. And so now you're like, okay, that didn't work for me. And so I'm not going to do that to my kids. That did work because there's some teachings that you have that she's instilled in you, that your dad has instilled in you, that you can pass along.
Right.
Because also, just going back to one of my sons, he was like, oh, you know, it sucks when somebody's telling you what to believe and For me in my house,
Right.
we would serve the Lord. Now, when you pay your own bills and you can go and buy your own tuna can and the opener, then we gonna talk about some things. But as of right now, because we see so far in ahead, you know what I'm saying? Like right now, your son may want to do something, but you know it's not best for him.
Right.
And I may not have the time to tell you, nor do I really care because it's on some grown stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because as a kid, you hear as 13, you know, because they be doing all kind of freaky deaky stuff. Well, what's freaky? What that mean? Now he Googling stuff, and that wasn't even in his spirit at first. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So some things you can't disclose or talk to about your kids, so you can't really give them the explanation because then they may open another door.
Right.
Unless you have got about 5 hours to sit,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna take you out to dinner, and we gonna just break this and bust this thing down. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things is for your good, with you in mind. And as a child, you don't understand those things, you know. And then there's some things it's because as a parent, we may be ignorant to the situation,
Right.
you know. And me saying that because I have, you know, kids that are your age, you know. And so now they look back like, man, mom, that was right. But when they were a teenager, they're like, she on that Jesus stuff,
Right.
and she's
Exactly.
weirdo, and she's crazy, and you know. But a closed door will really save your life.
Yeah.
It'll really save your life. You know what I'm saying? That no, or no, you can't go, and you know, because even for me, like being a teenager, when parties were going on, because I didn't get raised in church, but when parties were going on, people actually got killed and died at parties. Alcohol poison, where people literally died because they drunk too much alcohol, and they're a kid, and their mom don't even know they're at this party.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of those things, you know, you could say, okay, mom, I see why. Maybe I would have preferred for you to do it that way, but she didn't have to. At the end of the day, she really just didn't have to, you know, because sometimes you don't know how to. You know, it's like when a kid is like, oh, I want to talk about sexual education. And you like, whoa, mom, where does babies come from? And some people say, oh, the storks brung them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you, and you thrown off.
Yeah.
You just trying to get your husband some chicken. You in the
Right.
kitchen trying to whip up a fresh batch, you know, and then they come out the blue with that. How do you handle that?
I mean, honestly, I would welcome conversations like that because I wasn't able to have those conversations with my parents. And I feel like it could have avoided, not that I love my kids to death, you
Right.
know, I wouldn't change it for the world, but I feel like it could have prolonged me having kids.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like learning about condoms, like we didn't know about any of that stuff,
Yeah.
you know, even, you know, I've shared with you about like that time of the month.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about that. I thought I was dying
Right.
when I had mine because it wasn't something that was shared
Yeah.
with us. But then also too, I was terrified to say anything about it because I didn't want them to assume that I'm
Did
having
you
sex,
having sex,
you know.
right.
And so now that I have a daughter, and me and my son, so we're like best friends.
Okay.
He tells me any and everything. Like when he feels like he's ready to like girls or
Yeah.
what kind of girls he's into, it's an open conversation.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to create that space with my kids because I didn't have that space.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I always tell Chris, like, you know, it's okay. It's a natural thing to like girls. But, you know, school is what we worried about. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we looking forward to. That's what, and, you know, I have my little 3-year-old that thinks she's 33.
Right.
And she be like, Chris. So, you know, just like, you know, I want them to feel like it's okay to do that. But I also, you know, want them to understand like what is more important right now. Because also one thing that I feel like a lot of parents fail to realize, or, you know, sometimes older parents, is we're still human beings. We still have human, you know, traits, you know, like as Chris is getting older and becoming a preteen, you know, he's starting to look at
Feel
the girls.
things.
He's starting to feel
Yeah.
things. Exactly. And so, you know, I don't want him to feel like, oh, I can't tell my mom, you know,
Yeah.
and then now you out here trying stuff or practicing, and I always be telling Chris, I don't want no grandkids, okay?
Yeah.
I am too fine to be a grandma.
I'm about
And
to
so,
punch you.
and so, you know, he always just be like, oh, no, mom, I'm not even worried about that, you know, but it's just, you know, just having that open conversation.
Yeah.
But also I feel like at their level.
Yeah.
They don't need to know, you know, all the other things that come
Yeah.
along with it. Like at their level, at a 11-year-old's age, you know, we talk about girls, and I let him feed me his information. What do you know? You tell me, and then I'll clarify some things, or just be like, okay, yep, that's right. Because even with me and his dad, he just thinks like, you lay down and then you come out with a baby. That's fine. If that's what you think, that's where we're gonna leave it at. And
But do you feel that's dangerous because you didn't give him all of it?
I feel like he's too young to know. Like, I think, again, just having the conversation at their level. Like, once he gets 15, 16, I do believe that his father should have that conversation with him. But if he's not ready, I'm more than happy to have that conversation with him.
I can tell you 15, 16 is too late.
It
happens earlier than that. So the reason why I'm going down this journey with you, because perhaps maybe your people, your mom, your dad said they too young for that.
Yeah.
So, the rabbit jumped out the hat, here you go. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's not what Sarah and them said.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of times, because we're in where we're at, and all we can see is the small view of where we're at, or our understanding, or what we felt like, when there's a whole bigger picture.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Again, it's like you're saying that, and then they go to school, and then, no, my mom said, because some people are more freely, and I do think it should be age appropriate, but I think that sometimes you can break things down a little bit more, because your friends will have you messed up.
Yeah.
Have you jacked up.
Well, one thing I would say about Chris, though, he'll come back and relay the message, like, Mom, let me tell you what my friends were saying. And I'll either be like, no, Chris, don't listen to them. Or, we'll talk about it. We'll go back and forth about it. But I still don't want to share too much with him.
Most definitely.
Until, like, I'm more of a listener. You know how we talk about at work all the time. Like, you'll learn a lot about somebody if you just listen. And so, and he'll go on and on and on. And I'm like, oh, y'all be talking about that? Like, oh, what does that mean? And the new little slang that they have. And I be thinking I'm still, like, hip to it. I'm like, what does that mean, Chris? And, and we have, like, our conversations back and forth. But, I don't want to overshare, because what if he doesn't know about that yet, But like you said, I think a lot of things are more advanced now. And so if that is something that is being, shared with at school, I feel like 80% of the time, like, I would know. Chris would kind of share.
So my thing is just, it's not as easy when you think about it from the earlier standpoints to now. You know what I'm saying? That's why I brung all of this up. Because we understand what we understand, and we feel how we feel, and we think it the way we think it, until we're then walking in those shoes. And then it's like, ooh, how much do I share? And I'm not saying that's all the situation, but I'm just putting it out there that, it should be talked about. Most definitely, I think that, you should talk about some things. Some things you got to pray about, and say, you know what, my kids know I'm good for, let me pray about it. They'll say, that mean no. Because I need to hear from the Lord. Before I just divulge some things. Because again, you could be premature. Because I'm all about timing. What I tell you about timing all the time. All the time. And because you don't want to move too fast, and you don't want to move too slow. You know what I'm saying? God is about time, And so, how do you think you are doing as being a parent at this age now?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm always like my biggest critique when it comes to being a parent, just because I want to be the perfect parent. And I wouldn't say perfect, because it's hard to be perfect, but a lot of the things I just want, like, my kids to get that I didn't get. I feel like when it comes to communication styles and, like, the way I parent my kids, I'll give myself an A+, to be honest.
Okay.
But as far as, like, my time management, I do wish I had more time to spend with my kids.
Okay.
As you know, like, with the type of work that we do, like, I spend a lot of time at work and things like that. And then sometimes I do miss out on, like, their sports and, like, games and things like that. And, as we talked earlier, I'm super... like, I'm a supporter of my kid. Anything that they do, because I didn't get that support as a child, I want at least one of the parents to be present. Like, me and my husband have a great relationship. We're married. And so I feel like it's important to show up for your kids. Like, that's the whole point of being a parent, is to be there for them, But also, too, they have to understand, like, we have to work as well. But my biggest thing has always been, and even when I do start jobs, that's the first thing I tell them, like, I don't want to be at work all the time, because I'm working for my kids. There's no point of me to work all these hours and I don't have no time with them. So I would say, like, when it comes to time management with my kids, I give myself a D because I don't feel like I'm as present as I would like to be.
Okay. So with saying that, everything is about, for me, a post and an assignment. And so how you know what a post is, right? So, yeah, because we talked about that.
Yes.
I've shared that with you before. So in saying being on your post, right? As a parent, as a wife, as an employee, as a believer, like all of these things, like how big is being on your post to you when you're supposed to be doing something at a particular time, at a particular season, with purpose, and then you just don't do it, or you don't show up, or you like, no, let so-and-so do that, or, you know, prime example, being on your post as a parent,
Right.
being able to communicate with them, being able to provide for them, being able to spend time with them, being able to tell them that you love them, help them mentally, physically, spiritually, like the whole rounded thing. And if you don't do that because we're selfish and we're only thinking about ourselves, we've missed the mark. We're not on our post.
Right.
Then let's talk about on the spiritual aspect, because if you are, oh, I'm so into myself and I don't have time for other people and I just want to drink and go to the club and I just want to do everything else, and somebody's admiring you and they're like, wow, I think she's awesome. But then you don't make the time for God so that he can continue to work in you so that you can help somebody else through, because maybe they've gone through a lot of childhood trauma, you know, because we talked about childhood trauma. We've both experienced childhood trauma, and now you missed the mark. You weren't on your post. So now she's out left in the elements because you were only that one person to be able to help her in this season. Now the Lord could provide later on and somebody else come and plant the seeds, but you missed out because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Right.
You weren't on your post. It's like being at the bus stop at a scheduled time to go to a destination, and you know you're supposed to be there and you have to be there at a certain time or you're going to miss it, but you're just, you know, oh, I wonder if I did that. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, I should have did that. And then you stop for a while, digging all in your pocketbook. You weren't prepared. You weren't ready. Then the bus passes you by and you're like, oh my God, now you're late. People are held up. Right. You can't get to work, or you can't get to where you need to get to. Then you can't release the, it's a whole domino effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's important,
Excuse me.
but I feel like I have lacked in certain areas. So I think my biggest problem is when I focus or like zone in on something, then I forget about everything else.
But that's not the question.
So like being on my post, like,
yeah,
as far
how
as,
important is that? Like, how big is that?
It
Is that
should
even
be-
big at all?
it should be like my top priority, but it's not
Okay.
all the time. I would say not like it's not all the time, and the reason I say that is because sometimes, you know, I just lack in certain areas. So like as being a wife sometimes, you know, or even being a mother. At one point, my career was the most important thing to me. So
Yeah.
being on my post for my career was like, I let everything else fall by the wayside,
Right.
you know. But also, too, like, when God blesses you to be everything, a wife, a mother, a sister, you know, you kind of have to step in each one of those roles.
Right.
But for me, sometimes I let things lack because I think, like, when I zone into one thing, I can be, like, successful in that one thing, but I let everything else fall by the wayside.
Yeah. So time management is
My biggest
huge for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but being on your post, is it big?
It should be. I would like it to be,
Okay.
but it's not something that I have been actively working in. I
And
would
my
say.
thing is not that I really even care about the shortcomings. I just want you to acknowledge if it's big or not.
It
and
is.
then later on, as the Lord continues to develop you and deal with you, then, you know, Lord, I need you to deal with me in that, being in my post, because I don't want to be so strong in so many other areas that everything else in the background is just a horrible hot mess.
Right.
You know, so that's what I was just talking about, because then also talking about you experience someone not being on their post, quite a few people not being on their post.
Right.
You know, growing up, especially in church.
Right.
And so that's why I was giving you the kind of thought of, is that huge? Is being on your post, because think about how people should have shown up in you for certain ways and they didn't.
Right.
And then you develop church hurt.
Right.
Then you were like so totally off and like, I can't do this, I won't do this, like, how could you be loving and all your people are horrible and they don't care and look how they did us and what they said to us and all that kind of stuff. So what made you say, okay, Lord, I'm gonna give you another shot?
Like, as it says in the Bible, once you steer a child in the way they should go, they'll never depart from it. So like, honestly, and I've shared this with you before, church is like my peace. When I'm like, I've had a bad week, I'll go on Wednesday for prayer, and then I'll go on Sundays. Also too, I think like church has really helped me in my life. I would say all overall, like I know that there is a God. Like I know that angels are camped around me. Like there's so many things that could have happened to us that didn't, and it wasn't because we ducked in enough time or, it was literally like angels camped around us, and also too, like prayer really brings us through a lot. Like I would say like even being married, for the people that are married, it's not always peaches and creams, know, and so like you have to pray through those things. Also too, like fasting. So I would say my biggest 3 things that I've gained from church that helps me build my foundation of who I am today, I would say prayer, fasting, and giving my tithes and offering. And also too, like my mom is she's a big influence in my life. And so that's one thing. Like if I call my mom with anything, it don't even matter. I'm like the baby getting on my nerves. She be like, pray. I'm like, Mom, I just want to vent. And she's like, well, we gonna pray right now. We're gonna pray a sleep spirit on her. I'm like, okay, Mom. So like that's one thing my mom is just super big on, like, and I've always just really looked up to my mom because she doesn't let anything bother her. Like literally nothing. Like she could be having the worst day. I'm like, Mom, you didn't see that? And she's like, it's okay. The Lord gonna deal with him. I'm like, Mom, when I get old enough, I want to be just like you, because she just don't let nothing bother her. You know, it doesn't, like, there's been times that bills couldn't get paid, and she's like, they gonna get paid. Jesus paid it all. And so like just to have that thought now as me being an adult and having kids and things like that, and with everything going on in the world, your child could be walking to school and there could be a shooting or just anything, they snatching kids up. I pray over my kids, and like my mom used to always do to us, even now she speaks, good things over us, positive things over us. And so, I do that to my kids. And church has really, honestly, like I've never stopped praying. I never stopped going to church, but it was just, for me, we were involved in church, and what I mean by that, it was like literally everything that we did was around church. Like whether it was playing on the church's team, whether it was singing on the choir, whether it was being in the Christmas plays, like, and I wanted my kids to have that same, because also too, as I told you about my god sister, when you start going to church and you start getting involved and like, especially if your family is like ministers, you guys become family, because that's where I'm at most of the time, that's the only people's house you can go to, stay the night, and so, and then they kind of experience the same thing that you're experiencing. So, and me and my god sister talk about it all the time. Like, it's nothing like having a church family. Somebody you can call and be like, girl, I'm not having a good day. Like, can we pray? Like having those type of friends. Like I have worldly friends, but I also have church friends. People I can call and we can pray. If I need another job or a better job, we gonna pray for this job. You know, like we're not gonna let negative outside things like deter us or just anything. So that's why I would say, like, I wanted to start going back to church, but I do want to start even getting more involved in church. My kids love going to church. When they go see my mom for the summer, she takes them to all the, like, vacation Bible schools, and they love church. And even my son, he's like, Mom, you need to pray, The baby is still too, like, young to understand it. She knows, like, okay, church, but they just be coloring and telling the Bible stories, and so that's very entertaining for her. But I want them to have that same foundation that I had. And as they grow up, I would love for them to stay in church, but if they don't, at least you have that foundation, like how my parents gave it to me. Right.
So basically, it was really good for you.
It was
good for you, even though some people weren't on that post.
Correct.
And that you were mishandled, but God still worked that thing out.
Yes.
So that was a good thing.
But it makes me hesitant also too when I do visit new churches to want to be involved or just anything, because I don't want to be judged. I don't want to, like, of course, I have the church etiquette, but I'm still a human being. I feel like that's the biggest thing when you come to church. And it don't matter what church you go to. Like, some people could just be walking off the street, and they might have short skirts on, or the guys might be sagging. The first thing somebody does, they try to cover them up. And it's like, how are they supposed to get any type of help if they feel like they're the spotlight, And so, that's just my thing. I'm hesitant to do anything in church just because I don't want to get close to another church and then, like, you're judging me or you're judging my kids. Like, church hurt is the worst hurt to have because this is a place you feel like you're supposed to go get a sense of help. You're supposed to be able to be vulnerable, and you can't. And not all churches are like that, but the ones that I grew up in, honestly, like, and that's what we were talking about, earlier about the churches. Like, it's hard for us to pick a church because churches are different now. They're not the same, like, Holy Ghost fire, like, they speaking in tongues, they praying over people, and they really ready to stay down there with those people until they get delivered, It's not like that anymore. Like, they have churches where it's dark or people drinking coffee and, no shade to those churches, but
full meals in the back.
We were always just taught to reverence God, to reverence the sanctuary. Like, you don't play in church. You don't play about like, if people are speaking in tongues or you don't play about that. It's like blasphemy, And so, it's kind of hard for me to find a church home because we're trying to hold them to a certain standard, and I feel like it should be, because if that's where I'm going to go get my deliverance and I want my kids to grow up, like, it should be held to a certain standard. But also, those churches are the main ones that sometimes they judge,
So do you think that possibly the Lord will put it and birth it in you to where, okay, that is reason why you need to step up and be in ministry and involved even more, so that you can not verbally have to say anything, but with your actions kind of change the things, to change the culture. Because sometimes all it takes is one. He's like, will there be one? And that's huge right there. Like, being able to be on the post like that, to be able to say, or by your lifestyle, because a lot of times, I don't even know if when we first met, I didn't even tell you I was saved.
Nope.
No. And it's like, you don't have to say anything. It's by my lifestyle. What made you know that there was something different?
I feel like I have a spirit of discernment. So, like, I can, like, feel it, like, when you're talking to someone, if someone's being genuine, or, if they just might be saying some scriptures that they've heard from, back in the day. But you remind me a lot of my mom.
Okay.
And it's just like, even too, when I hear you talking to the people, you're like, okay, Jesus bless you. All right, move away from my window. So, it's just like, you're very, like, sweet and very, like, but also too, you're real. And I will say, like, even, the advice that you have given me, like, even being married and stuff like that, just like, as far as, like, praying. And again, it goes back to, like, that's the same thing my mom says. She just, Nikki, you need to pray about it. Nikki, you need to pray about it. And I'm like, Mom, I just want to vent, though. Can I be mad for a little bit? And she like, no.
Because you like to take it mad to the next 2, 3, 8 days. No.
So.
You need to come on out.
So, yeah, that's how I knew, though.
Okay. Because it was just like, when we first met, I just started talking to you. Because you were coming in and you were super nervous. And I was like, calm down. It's okay.
Yep.
You're just having a conversation. Yeah. And I was like, okay, she's going to get the job.
Yeah.
Said some other stuff to you.
Yeah.
And it was just like, from there, it was just like, we were just cool, And it was nothing that I said. So that's the thing, me standing on my post then at work.
Yeah. Definitely.
If I was way out, you'd be like, girl, I thought you said you love Jesus.
Yeah.
You acting a fool in here. Am I always, do you see that there's any difference with me? Am I always like this?
Yes, you're always like that.
Sometimes you go to different, environments or situations. Like, I'm different. Oh, you may be different at home than you are at church. You're different at church than you are at work. And people are like, who are you today? So that's important to me. That's a post right there.
Yes.
Is remaining faithful and consistent in who I am to him, that somebody else can see. And from there, we be able to talk about certain things. Right. And I'll be able to give you godly counsel. And then I always tell you, let me apply some ointment to it. And then my ointment is what? Scripture.
Yeah.
It's the word of God. Because also it's challenging being married.
Yeah.
It's challenging being a parent in these days. It is challenging working where we work at times. The peoples.
Yes.
It's just the peoples.
Definitely.
And so just being able to be on your post is huge to me because somebody's waiting on me.
Right.
Somebody's waiting on you. And so in saying all of that, perhaps he allows you to see certain things so that you can get involved in ministry like you were, so that you would be able to give your kids the foundation that people won't be able to just say and do anything, in your presence, and you hold up a standard for the Lord. This cough is just so annoying. But it's like, have you thought about that?
So I think me and you have talked about this. I think I don't know if it's like if it takes counseling or if it takes like prayer, if it takes fasting, but I think my biggest thing, I can forgive people, but I don't forget. And so even with that, like I've wanted to kind of like, help out at church, but then I'm like, because what if it's like, or what if they be acting like the people that, the previous church that we went to. And so it just, I don't know if that's like the devil working or, because everything's is stem from a thought.
Right.
And I just feel like a lot of times I could want to do it and then just be like, nah, I'm just going to come, praise the Lord, pay my tithes and offering, we're going to get on, So.
But you still will go to a work and we got crazy people there, but yet you still show up no matter how the people act.
Here's a paycheck.
It don't matter. You were getting paid from the Lord.
Yeah.
What
true.
you do here matters later on.
That's true.
Because he talks about having many mansions.
That's true.
So it's like you need to pay your mortgage down here for him up there. You know what I'm saying? But you yet still go to a job so you can get your bag.
Yeah.
And so now it's just like there's no greater feeling than getting the bag for the Lord because it's a spiritual thing. To see somebody get it.
Right.
To see somebody work that thing out. To see a little kid who maybe gone through struggles or having issues at home with parents or being abused or not eating.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's pretty much me. Like, and I think the mom and being a wife and even being a servant, like, honestly, I do want to hear, well done when I, when I do pass away. But I don't know. I think a lot of times, just like the church hurt, as we always say, it just kind of holds me back from that. And then, sometimes like when I'm talking to my mom, I'm like, as long as I have a relationship with the Lord, and she's like, I know, Nikki, but you need to be, actively, like doing things in church, and your kids need to see it. You want to be a good example. You can't just be a good example at home. You have to be a good example, when you do go to church, and like, you can't tell them like you want them to go to church and not lie and cuss and all this stuff, but you also have to be the example all the way around.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
Cupcake, there is some bracelets on the bookcase.
Which color?
The multicolored ones.
So can I ask you, like, what would you say is your most important post that you are on in life, like on an everyday life, in everyday life? Is it the post for the Lord? Is it the post as like a mother, as a wife? And then like, how do you balance it all? Like time management, like how do you, like what could be your advice to me so I could have like that time management?
So for me, the spiritual realm runs everything. So most definitely it's a woman of God first. Then it's a wife. Then it's a mother. Servitude is everything to me. Your posture is everything. To present my body a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable, which is my reasonable service. And how I balance it all is praying, fasting, crucifying my flesh, putting God first, and then he delegates to me what this needs to be done and that needs to be done, because he is one of those. He reminds me of the Lady of Liberty, how he balances that thing out for you. So he lets you know when you're neglecting over here, or this is not done and this not done. And if you keep your mind on him, stayed on him, he'll keep you in perfect peace. So my mind is in peace as I'm divided in all of these different areas, because it could be a struggle, but really, and I know sometimes it sounds so cliche, but that's really how I live my life, is really just seeking him, trusting in him, going to him with all of my stuff, leaning not to my own understanding, but in all my ways acknowledge him, and he directs my path. That would be the foundation scripture for me in your situation, in my situation, and anybody's situation who is trying to balance that thing, because you most definitely don't want things to slip, especially in your marriage. And then you don't want to neglect your kids, and then they're like, I had a horrible childhood. My mom and dad sucked. All they did is sing the ribbon in the sky and looked at each other in the eyes, and we didn't get to do anything. They barely fed us, because sometimes they didn't put the extras on it. You like, boy, I did not do all of that. You need to stop lying. But in their mind, especially if they're dramatic, and I have a couple that are dramatic, just like, boy, stop. That really would be my foundation, is trusting in him and leaning not to my own understanding. Communication is huge in any relationship, whether it is a mother to child relationship, whether it's a God to servant relationship, whether it is a husband and a wife, whether it is employee employer. Communication is so key, right? Because sometimes we think we're explaining it, or we're conveying exactly what we feel, but it's so opposite because of the love language, right? The way I process stuff, the way you think about it, because you like this and I like, affirmation, you like physical touch, and all of these different things that it's like they don't match. So if we don't communicate those things, I'm going to serve you the way I would serve myself, because that's what fills my bucket, but that's not it. So I didn't communicate with you, so now I'm off, Right. So seeking him and communication is like huge, and then he just tells you, gotta do this, need to do that, don't forget to do that, just constantly speaking to me, even in meditation, to where he's able to just sit and sup with you, spending time with him, alone with you as well, with yourself, right? Kind of centers you and balances you, because if mom's not good, nobody good, right? Nobody is good, and so just having that peace and that center of being able to go to him with all my stuff, and asking him to put his super on my natural. Yes. So I can be supernatural, and so that is my key, and it has worked 22 years for me, and I expect it to work 22 more years for me, Any other questions for me?
So do you feel like where did you feel like you became mature in your spiritual walk? Because I mean, some people get saved and then they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna repent, I'm gonna pray. But then there's some people that after you've been saved for a long period of time, then they really walk it. And I'm not saying everyone. Some people, as soon as they get saved and delivered, they're just immediate, you know. But I think a lot of times it takes spiritual maturity to be able to be like, okay, I'm not going to do this, because things are just in your face, like alcohol, or like it is so much easier to cuss than to be like, you know what, I'm gonna pray about this, because again, you're a human being and you have emotions and feelings. So do you feel like you had to have like a maturity level?
No, it was from jump, because I was a natural born Hellcat. So God has done so much for me and has spared my life so many times, that he was given much is required. Right. And so because he saved my life so many times, and I don't play with this thing, as you know, I'm real. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is with me, matter of factly. So I'm in or I'm out, you know. I think I have that kind of thing to where it's either black or white. Right. It's no gray in between, because lukewarm, he gonna spew out your mouth, out of his mouth. And so it's like, I really don't want to play halfway with it and then be playing real spiritual Russian roulette. Right. And so it was like, I was a Hellcat one day, got saved, and then instantaneously it was like, no, I'm cutting out all of these things because I really want to tell him thank you face to face. I must tell him thank you for the many a times that he has saved my life when I wasn't saved, and even after getting saved, you know, from being tired on the road and falling asleep. And he literally drove me home, you know, to where I should be dead 1,000 times over. And I told him, if you save me, I will run for the balance of my days. That was my spirit man, because the flesh man was like, oh no, because we turning up, you know. And it was like, no, it's no more of that. But because of the things that I did in the past and the environments that I might been in, I never really was a drinker, wasn't a smoker, none of those kind of things. Drugs, that wasn't my thing. My thing was fighting and some whole other crazy stuff, you know. And so very volatile. And so I should be dead. I shouldn't be here. So when he gave me that opportunity, he snatched me up, because he's like, what they say, that he protects fools and babies, and I wasn't no baby. So imagine what I was, you know, that he snatched me out of the hands of death. And so I just knew I had to run from him, for him, because I didn't want to hear from him say, depart from me, you work of iniquity, I never knew you. Or for him to say, you did well, run well, but what hindered you? You know, I didn't want any of those things. So it's like all or nothing, you know, and you do get a greater understanding as you continue to go down the journey. Have I failed some tests? Absolutely. I failed some tests, you know, because for my spirit that I used to deal with, my demonic spirit, was a volatile one. And so it's like, I'm about to snatch them braids out from the roots, not from the roots, from the roots. Yeah. And so it was like, no, you're not. You're going to pray. Now we need to put a fast on it. So I constantly stayed fasting. For the first 3 years of my salvation, I fast every week. I did not miss a week, because I was dealing with some things that needed to be delivered. And only these come out through fasting and praying. So I always say, put a fast on it. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't just about, I got to get it along the way, because Jesus came and paid it all for us. So he walked this thing out for us, and he's been tried on every hand. So if he can do it, you know, I'm not him, but I'm seeking to be him. You know, and so it was like, I got to get this thing. You know, I can't let it defeat me. So that was for me. But I do believe that you kind of learn some more things to put in your tool belt, as I always talk about, to help you along your journey, that what I would have did in year 5, I wouldn't did in year 15. What I did in year 15, I wouldn't do in year 22. You know what I'm saying? So that was just it. Just sticking close to him, leaning not to my own understanding, fasting, praying, like crucifying the flesh, really just like meaning like I love him more than life itself, more than my own self, more than my flesh, more than my thoughts, more than my feelings, more than anything. I love him over me and anybody on this earth, you know. So that's what it was for me, is that, you know, you got to get this thing and get this thing quick, because the devil, the adversary coming. He ain't about to play with me. You know what I'm saying? Especially, it was like I was a top lieutenant general, you know, in the devil's camp. And it's like, to lose me is like, man, we losing a soldier. And so it's like, no, I got to put a fast on this thing. So that's what it was for me. You know, it's just like, I'm just about it for real. Either I'm in it or I'm out it. You know, either I rock with you or I don't, you know, and it's cool, you know. And if you don't rock with me, that's cool too. You know what I be saying? May the Lord watch.
Exactly.
And I'm good, because I'm not for everybody, and everybody ain't for me. You know what I'm saying?
You always say that.
So, exactly. And I mean that to my core, and you know that. You see me day in and day out, you know, and I ain't got no cuss in me. So I ain't sneaking around the cooler, the water cooler, going to cuss and come back to my desk. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But that's what it was for me. But you do mature as you go. But it shouldn't take you 28 years to mature. How much do you really love him? That's what it boiled down to. Did he not literally put the skin on it for you? He literally put flesh for you to get this thing, and not to be tripping on the same thing. You know what I'm saying? If you know the enemy coming because this is what you like, prepare yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like a thief coming in the night. You're not going to say, oh, I opened the security gate for you.
Right.
You coming lock and loaded.
Exactly.
And it ain't no piece be still because you praying. You like, I'm about to get a piece of steel. So it's like, prepare yourself.
Right.
You know he coming for you.
Yeah.
He want to see us all fail. You know, he want to kill, steal, and destroy.
Right.
You know, so you got to gear yourself up. You know, everything shouldn't make you fall out
Right.
to where, ooh, I need a drink.
Right.
Ooh, I'm about to cuss this person. You know, like, no, when you going to pass the test?
Right.
How long will you stay in kindergarten?
Right.
How silly does it look naturally for somebody to be 28 in kindergarten for real? Like, literally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you still falling for the same okie doke?
Right.
You know? So that's what it is for me.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope. That was all I have.
Okay. So your bracelets say swift,
Thank you.
slow, decision. And so the blue is for calm. So that color is calming. So you need to be calm in all of the situations. The pink is for peace because you be needing a whole bunch of peace.
I do.
This multicolor is because you have to, and you talked about it and touched on it. How am I supposed to be everything to everybody? And a lot of times people link to you and they come to you, you know, and you have to be able to give them counsel and godly counsel. Not from the book of Nikki 17:3, because you just ripped that out the whole book. And the book, just burn the book. The book ain't no good. You know, you have to actually give them godly counsel. You know, and to be able to be a wife, an employer, and a daughter, and a servant, a friend, a sister, an aunt. All of these things that you are, you have to put on the different hats. And then the decision you have clearing those, and that's the only ones that you have to clear because you have to be clear about the decisions that you make.
Okay.
You hear me?
I hear
Without me telling you, you hear me. You know what I'm saying to
I
you,
know.
your spirit man.
Last Friday we had it was a whole day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is your word. Be swift to hear. Not to use that mouthpiece because you clock and load that thing like clack, clack. Like it's a whole 12-shot gauge, like going off around for round.
Yeah.
No. Swift to hear. Slow to speak. Keep that little pie close. It's a nice pie, but keep it close.
Okay.
Pray about it. Don't be so swift because you will switch these things around like, oh, I'm going to be swift to wrath. No, you're not. I'm going to be swift to say this. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Because I put the ointment on it for you
Okay.
before. That a wise woman builds up her house, but a foolish one tears it down with her own home. Or her own hands, I'm sorry. So you can't tear your home down.
Right.
You got to be wise. You know what I'm saying? Because the devil coming after marriages. He coming after our kids. He coming after our mind. He coming back after anything that God has sanctioned
Right.
and has ordained. You know, and then you leave generational hurt because you've experienced that.
Right.
I've experienced that. So we're going to be swift to hear. Not what you want to hear. We ain't listening to the devil. We just blocking him out. Block, block, blickety, blickety, block. Slow to speak. Slow to wrath. Slow to move.
Okay.
Don't make no moves.
Okay.
And don't hit no Hollywood stops on me either. Go all the way. Stop.
Stop real quick. And go.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
no. We ain't doing none of that. And the decisions.
Okay.
I don't even got to say nothing about that.
Yep, I'm with it.
I need you to be really with it, though. Because a lot is riding on that thing. You know what I'm saying? About the decisions that you make. Because it ain't just about you.
Yeah.
It's about your husband. It's about your family as a whole. It's about the kids. It's about even where you work at.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All of it. One decision can derail your whole life
Right.
for 20 years. Some people have made bad decisions and done things that they know Holy Spirit was dealing with them in, and they went to jail for 25 years with a possibility of an L for that one decision. That one decision can tear somebody's life up.
Yeah.
So be swift, be slow, and use godly decisions.
Okay.
Tuck your own decisions in your bosom and use godly counsel.
Yes.
Listen to your mother. What she's saying, she been in this game for a while. And she's been married a while. And she's gone through some things. Some things that you can't even know about. You know what I'm saying? Some things that she's just now allowing you to share in. You know what I'm saying? Listen, glean.
Yeah.
That the Bible talks about older women counseling the younger women because we're wise. You know, so you got to really get this thing. It ain't about all the way to what you feel.
Yeah.
Tuck your feelings at the door, because feelings is not facts.
That's true.
It's get you somewhere in the wild, wild west with no drawers on. You be like, where my penny drawers go? You know, it ain't cool. So you really got to make a decision in God, not your own decision, in God, before you even move. Lord, should I do it? Ask him. Start asking him. Because then you be jacked up, and then you start talking to him.
Yeah.
No, you got to talk to him first.
That's
Seek him first. Then, okay, sometimes he may say, be quiet. Don't move. Coley, don't you look that way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it ain't even what you about to say. It's them eyes. Them old pretty eyes of yours. Get you somebody all jacked up, and you too.
Yeah.
Keep yourself to yourself. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Keep yourself to yourself. The body language, your posture, your eyes, your mouth, all of it.
Yeah.
And let God deal with you.
Yeah.
Then he will direct your path. And he'll say, do it this way. Say it this way. Because we've had conversations and you want to do it this way. And I said, have you considered? I ain't force you, right?
Yeah.
I say, have you considered this? And mine's is so much sweeter.
Yeah.
And it's going to get you where you need to be.
Yeah.
And that might just be a conversation. It may not cure all, and it may not be the tell all be all, but it'll get you a conversation. It'll get the door open for you. Because at least when you get the door open for you, you'll know and be able to skim the room and see what you're getting ready to get into.
Right.
Instead of just sliding in there face first, then jump up.
Yeah.
Looking all crazy, cockeyed. Ain't nobody want to fool with that.
Exactly.
Be sweet. Be sweet.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna try.
No, you going to do it. We ain't trying nothing. We doing it.
Okay.
So that was our episode today on So Sweet Sundays. We kind of hit on some of everything. But it's hard to be a wife. It is so hard.
Yes.
Man, like, that thing is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And then some people be wanting to take up positions and stuff. And we ain't gonna talk about that though. But that's it on So Sweet Sundays. I'm Sweet.
I'm Coley, Nikki.
And we out.